What went through the mind of a young volunteer who wanted to join the Roman legion? He probably dreamt of adventure, battles and glory. Becoming a legionary guaranteed a prestigious status and steady income. He knew that he would have to serve the empire for 25 years, perhaps at the cost of his own life. Over the first 2 centuries AD, the risk of dying in combat did exist, but it was low. The Roman Empire was at its height, and it was a stable period called Pax Romana. Still, the enormous territory's 7,500-kilometer border was protected and domestic security assured.
New legionaries had to undergo a series of tests, a kind of trial, which enabled them to pass from the status of tyro, recruit, to the status of miles, soldier. The initial phase was called probatio and consisted in testing both physical and moral skills. Recruits were assigned to a unit and followed training that would enable them to demonstrate their ability to serve once and for all. They mainly had to practice handling the appropriate weapons, such as wooden swords or wicker shields.
Uno. Cerchio. Cerchio. Duo. Duo. Cerchio.
On the training field, the young recruits would come across seasoned legionaries whose time served was coming to an end. Once their training was completed, the young legionaries were sometimes sent to the empire's remote areas to guard the borders, or to major city garrisons to ensure domestic security. Two sites illustrate very different living conditions for legionaries: the urban garrison of Lugdunum, capital of the Gauls, and the fort of Vindelanda, located on the edge of the empire. Vindelanda was one of many garrisons located in northern England along Hadrian's Wall. Having given up defeating the northern barbarians from the British Isles, Emperor Hadrian had a defensive wall built in 120 AD as protection against their attacks. The wall was 120 kilometers long, 6 meters high, and almost 3 meters thick. It was bristling with watchtowers and defensive forts. Three kilometers inside the wall, the fort of Vindelanda was continuously occupied for 3 centuries. The richness of this archaeological site can be explained by the presence of Roman soldiers in this garrison for such a long period of time. Vestiges abound because the soil is poor in oxygen and therefore provides ideal conditions for conservation.
If you have no air, no oxygen, there's no energy or no fuel for bacteria to break things down, to decompose what's sitting in the ground. So it's a little bit like putting something into a freezer. It just sits there for a very, very long period of time. It's a beautifully shaped piece of wood. It's a little paddle or a spatula.
Excavations have been carried out on the site over the past 50 years. At the beginning of the 1970s, archaeologists made an extraordinary discovery. It was not a treasure of gold, jewels, or precious stones, but small wooden tablets buried in blackish lumps of earth. After being cleaned and treated, they revealed inscriptions in ink. Since then, close to 2,000 tablets have been unearthed.
There are certain artifacts that you find that they just make an incredible connection with you. And what you're doing is you're making a connection not with the thing that you're finding, but with the human being who last touched it before it went into the ground. It's like an electric shock. The writing tablets are the artifact that does that for me. You know that's going to tell you something sensational, but it's information that you would never get from any other source.
Thanks to infrared photography, the tablets have been digitalized and deciphered by specialists in Roman cursive writing.
This tablet here is the first tablet was found by my father in 1973, that oily piece of wood. And it kind of sums up the value of all of them. It's a letter that's been sent with a package from home. And it says, basically, say hello to your messmates, say hello to everybody. Oh, and by the way, in the package, we've included 2 sets of socks and 2 sets of subligaria, underpants. This is the first mention of the word underpants in Britain. The history of underpants starts with this letter. But also, it speaks to the sense that these soldiers are away from home. And they are still, however, connected. They're still getting care packages from home, from thousands, sometimes miles away. And that completely humanizes Roman soldiers.
Whether it be reports to superiors, orders to local artisans, or correspondence with family, friends, or slaves, the Vindelanda tablets are helping us to relive the everyday concerns of Roman legionaries 2,000 years later. Through the legionaries' words, the life of a garrison comes to light, including its most ordinary aspects.
So here we have a letter between Octavius to Candidus. They are talking about supplies coming to Vindelanda. They're talking about vast quantities of wheat that Vindelanda has ordered and needs to come to the site. And also they're talking about a huge number of hides as well that are coming to the site, animal hides. And what poor old Octavius is having to do here, he's having to front the money, wagon loads of material, and hundreds of denarii are involved in this. He's written this letter in such a hurry that he's folded it while the ink is still wet. And you can see the transcript of this page just bleeding into the other side. So this guy is in a big, big hurry. It gives us a little insight into the sheer volume of material that was moving on the roads.
Vindelanda's gigantic granaries confirm that the forts required significant amounts of food.
I'm in the main storeroom for Vindelanda, one of the granaries. This is absolutely vital to the garrison structure. It holds enough grain and food for a year and a day for this community.
Lucius Papirius Caecina.
Absolutely.
Ostus Florius Felix.
Absolutely.
Organization was one of the Roman army's strengths. Writing was crucial to managing the military machine. Barbara Burley, curator of the Vindelanda Trust, regularly restores writing material found on the site.
Something's drawn my eye here. That looks like a stylus pen.
It is. We find lots of these here at Vindelanda, and we really enjoy finding these because they're such part of a very important written history from the site. It's a very typical kind of stylus pen. You've got your point for writing and your eraser up here for smoothing your wax.
Can I have a go with that?
Okay.
I just want to see how it feels, because that is just a joy, isn't it? It actually feels right in your hand. You just want to begin writing with it.
Wax tablets, which were engraved with a stylus, were an erasable and reusable form of writing media. They were used to keep the accounts, do stock inventory, and write down food orders for the camp. Grains were a vital resource for making bread, and legionaries consumed close to 1 kilo a day. The millstones used to grind the grains deposited silica particles into the flour. The silica particles in the bread ended up filling the legionaries' teeth, as revealed by dental analysis. The substantial resources required by the forts attracted civilian settlements in their immediate vicinity. The small towns, called vicars, prospered thanks to the legionaries' purchasing power.
So this is a lovely little coin in the bag here. This is actually quite small change. It's not worth very much money in terms of Roman coinage. It's the lowest thing that they have. But it's a coin of Domitian. So this is an emperor from the 80s and 90s AD. This little coin, even though it doesn't look much, could buy you at Vindelanda, when it was in use, 5 gallons of beer. So you can imagine a Roman soldier or a civilian would have shed a tear when they lost this coin. The second coin I've got in my pocket here, it's very different, easy to lose, but much more valuable to the Roman who lost it. This little coin here, this is the main currency. This is the euro or the pound that they use at Vindelanda. This is incredibly valuable. You can buy a horse for 2.5 of these little coins, which is incredible. And they get about 160 to 180 of those coins a year in their pay.
Starting with Emperor Augustus in 20 BC, the Roman army became a professional army aiming to improve its combat efficiency. It had over 300,000 men.
Aurus Manilius Vivo, Aurifilius Quintinepos, Latina.
The army was very expensive for the empire. It's difficult to assess what share of the budget went to the army, since budgets were done differently back then. However, we do know for sure that it was the most expensive item for the Roman state, and that it certainly devoted more than half of its resources to it, particularly taxes. Taxes were largely intended for the upkeep of the army, Rome's true power.
Legionaries earned 1,200 sesterces a year, the equivalent of 900 euros. The equipment and provisions provided by the army were taken out of their pay. The remainder was paid to them in cash, which they spent on clothing, food, and additional equipment.
Curius Linus.
Because of the Roman soldiers' economic power, garrisons quickly became major economic hubs. So soldiers felt free to leave the camp and have a life outside of the unit to get the things they needed, for instance.
So I'm on the 3rd century street here, outside the fort of Vindelanda. And this is the high street, the shopping precinct. And on either side of this street, we've got long, thin buildings stretching off in every direction. And this is the social hub of Vindelanda. So here we've got one particular very big building. And this building was identified as the tavern. This would be the absolute central point, the social place at the site.
At the tavern, legionaries drank beer and wine, they ate, played dice for money, and rubbed shoulders with the locals. Legionaries also enjoyed going to the thermal baths. You can still see the pillars for the hot air circulation system, used to set the right temperature for the floors and baths.